Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Tuesday, December the 9th. And welcome to our commentary. I have a post over at the American Thinker today. Just wanted to alert you to that. And it's about this article that appeared in the New York Times. All of a sudden, the New York Times comes out with an article talking about how President Biden was being told by his staff that the border could become a real political problem for him, meaning the way he was handling the border by not enforcing or changing some of the things that President Trump had done, like remain in Mexico, which turned out to be very successful under President Trump, but it was immediately canceled by President Biden. And they have a big story about this in the New York Times, almost like saying, gee, he didn't listen to us. He didn't listen to us. Look, I happen to be a little bit cynical of that story. I'm not saying that the story is 100% false, but the reason that it comes out now, you have to kind of wonder, gee, why do they bring it up now? Why do they bring it up now? Another thing, too, is how much of what was happening on the border or these decisions that were being made about the border were actually made by President Biden? I'm not sure that many of them were. I think that one of the saddest things about the President Biden's term, and I don't say this with any satisfaction, as I say, I think this is very sad, is that much of what he was doing, he wasn't really doing. He was being told what to sign, what to say. And you really have to wonder how much, in fact, President Biden was aware of the mess that he was creating. Again, I'm not defending President Biden. I didn't vote for him. And he was disastrous in other areas as well. Afghanistan, for example, how we pulled out. But I do think that toward the end of his presidency, I don't think he was the one making calls. In fact, probably for much of his presidency, he was not the one making the calls. So it's an interesting article if you've got the time to check it out. But it makes you a little cynical when you read articles like this. How all of a sudden, gee, President Biden didn't listen to his advisors. Really? Was he listening to any advisors? That's the question I've always had about his presidency. Well, anyway, check it out over at AmericanThinker.post. And I also include a link to the entire New York Times article if you want to read it. It's interesting. It's interesting. I'm just a little bit cynical with the timing of that article. Well, the big story, of course, around here is that Jasmine Crockett, Congresswoman, has decided to run for the U.S. Senate. She's going to be entering, or she has already entered, I should say, the Democrat primary. And it looks like she's going to be running against James Tallarico, who is a state representative from Central Texas. The other candidate on the list, Colin Allred, who's a former congressman, and the man who ran and lost against Senator Ted Cruz in 24, he has dropped out. He's going to run for the Congress. He's going to be looking for a congressional seat to run, or a district to run. But anyway, so it's going to come down to Tallarico and Crockett. And then, of course, the winner of that contest will face whoever the Republican is. And that's, at the moment, not really clear who the Republican is going to be, whether it's going to be incumbent Senator Cornyn, Attorney General Paxton, and a newcomer, Wes Hunt, who's actually making a pretty big name for himself. He's campaigning very well. I like him a lot. I can see, I'm not sure if this is the year for him, but he's definitely senatorial material, even governor material. I like to see him look in that direction in the future as well. But, he may get the primary. I don't know. But I was listening to somebody today saying that if you're a member of the press, wouldn't you love to have a campaign between Attorney General Paxton and Jasmine Crockett, or Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett? Wouldn't you love to have that campaign? We may get that. We may get that. And that would be awfully entertaining, to say the least. Of course, if it's Senator Cornyn, who's kind of a low-key kind of guy, it's not going to be as entertaining, but, it'll be interesting, to say the least. And if the Republican candidate is Wes Hunt against Congresswoman Crockett, it'll be an interesting battle because they're both African Americans. and they both have a totally different perspective of what's going on in the country. And Congressman Wes Hunt has obviously a totally different perspective of the problems in the African American community or the country in general than Congresswoman Crockett. So that would be an interesting election, just from the standpoint of how would African Americans vote when they see the contrast between these two African Americans, a Republican who's very conservative and a Democrat who's very liberal. Very interesting how what would happen in that election, but who knows? Who knows who it's going to be? The primary is going to be in March, and between now and March, there's a long time. I can tell you one thing: every one of these candidates is going to have a lot of money. So I guess sometime after the first of the year, we'll start seeing the television ads, and we're going to be flooded with television ads, and they're going to be critical television ads. You know, I didn't mention much about James Tallarico. He's running against Jasmine Crockett. He's kind of an enigma, really, I think, for most people. No one can really figure out his candidacy. He's trying to appeal, I think, to a more moderate Democrat, but he doesn't necessarily have Democrat or moderate policies. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how the two of them stack up in a debate. I look forward to that, because how would Tallarico tackle, Jasmine Crockett? I don't know. And how would Jasmine Crockett tackle Tallarico? I don't know. I don't know what their strategies would be, but it would be interesting which one of these two men, which one of these two, men and woman, would be looking more moving to the left to appeal to obviously a more leftist Democrat primary base. We'll see. We'll see. And we're going to find out all of these questions, as I say. We're going to answer all of these questions after the first of the year. Between now and the end of the year, there's not going to be much going on. But after the first of the year, you're going to start seeing a lot of advertising for all of these candidates on television. It's going to become very, very, very intense, to say the least. A couple of quick stories that are out in the news. This whole thing up in Minnesota with this fraud, I'm kind of slowly learning about it, but it does look to me like there's a big scandal going on here. And the governor of Minnesota obviously didn't know what was going on, or turned, as they say, didn't care what was going on, but he's going to be held accountable either way. But when you have the kind of fraud that we're seeing up there, it is amazing to me that this didn't come out before, because I'm sure it was going on during the campaign for president when, Governor Walz was the VP, and I don't recall anything about this coming out. So I have a feeling that there's a lot more to this than what we've heard so far. And one of the best places to check up on the information up in Minnesota is the Power Line blog, who one of my favorite blogs. It's written by some attorneys up there in Minneapolis, and they are really good. I mean, that's one of my super favorite blogs. And they've been writing about this problem for quite some time. In fact, they've got a post today about it. And I would recommend that you check it out, and check it out frequently, because they've been writing a lot about this problem. And believe me, it's a big problem. It's a huge problem anytime you're talking about these kinds of money. The other issue that I want to touch on, because it's going to become more important, is birthright citizenship. That is right now in front of the Supreme Court. Not the issue of birthright citizenship, but whether it can be ended by an executive order, which I don't think that it can be ended by an executive order. But I believe what the Supreme Court is going to do is to say, okay, no, you cannot end it by executive order, but birthright citizenship did not come from the 14th Amendment. And I think that's how the Supreme Court will decide is either come right out and say, no, the 14th Amendment doesn't apply here, or they may just say, we're going to send this back to the Congress, and the Congress needs to write, an amendment to the 14th Amendment to clarify this, or they may themselves clarify it. I don't know. But either way, I don't think that the supporters of birthright citizenship are going to win. The idea that somebody can come over and have a baby and have that baby automatically be an American citizen simply because he was born on U.S. territory even if the parents are not here legally. I think that's pretty much over. I think that that's going to end real soon. Now, they may have to have like an effective date and say, okay, from this day on, because obviously some people have already earned their or become citizens because of the fact that they were born here. So they're not going to go back, I think, and cancel a bunch of citizenship or citizenship status. But I think they'll make it effective at a particular day and look to the future and say from now on that will no longer be considered a citizen of the United States simply because you're born here. That's not going to cut it. I have a post coming out Wednesday about 2026. I'm talking a little bit about the prospects for President Trump and the Republicans in 2026. Right now, President Trump is down like about 9 points when you look at the average of the poll, his approval, that is. That's not good, but it's, the last two polls have been moving in his direction. So let's see where it stands in a few months. I think some good information, some good economic information is going to come out over the next 6 months that will help President Trump's approval. Now, the generic, what they call the generic, which applies more to the Congress. Right now, the Democrats are ahead like by 3.7 when you look at all the polls. That's not enough. That's not a wave. If that were to hold true, that may mean that the Democrats would win the House by maybe 5 to 7 seats, which is, again, not a major victory. It is a majority technically, but it's not a wave or anything like that. But the point that I make in my article is that we really don't know where this is going to go. And I think we need to look at this maybe more in 6 to 9 months. Sometime between July 4th and Labor Day, I think we'll get a much better sense of what's happening with the economy and how the people feel about it. My sense is that they're going to feel better about it. That's just my opinion, because I trust some of the things that this administration has been doing. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong about that. But I think I have a good feeling that the country is going to be feeling a lot better about the economy this summer and early fall. Well, we go back in history today to December the 9th, 1980. This was the day that we were all talking about the assassination of John Lennon. Lennon was actually killed the night before, very late on Monday night. I think it was like 11 o'clock Eastern time. He was going into his apartment and somebody shot him. A lot of people heard about it on the NFL Game of the Week, the Monday night Game of the Week. That's where most people heard about it. Howard Cosell broke the story. But, that's 45 years ago. It's kind of hard to believe, isn't it, that it was 45 years ago that John Lennon was killed. But it was. And, you've seen it's kind of an up and down revival with the Beatles. They seem to go out, they come back again. But I still love their music, and I guess I always will. But it would be interesting to see, in 20 or 25 years, if anybody's going to remember the Beatles. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. All I can tell you is that I still like them. And I'm impressed with the fact that so many young people listen to their music. That's something I would have never believed many years ago when I was in high school or whatever, or college. If anybody had said to me in the year, 2025, there was a song called In the Year 2525, but that's something else. But anyway, if anybody had said to me in the year 2025, the Beatles are going to be selling all kinds of records, I would not have believed it. I have to be honest with you. I would not have believed it. I would have said, no way. They're not going to last that long. And it was not a knock on their music. It's just that, things don't last that long normally. But anyway, they did. And I guess, whether they last another 25 or 50 years, I don't know. But they're doing very well right now. I guess their estates are doing very well. A couple of them, of course, George and John, are dead. But Paul and Ringo, I'm sure that they're collecting quite a few royalties from all the sales and all the promotion that the Beatles are getting. Well, thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.